Have you ever wondered if you could survive Fallout 4's Wasteland? Well, I have. But there are many different factors that would go into answering a question like this, such as where would you be setting off from? What would you be setting off with? How much damage could you take compared to your Fallout 4's in-game character? So I came up with a way to answer all of these questions so that we can truly find out how survivable Fallout 4's Commonwealth and Greater Wasteland truly is. Before I continue with this video, I just want to say I am back. I am back from France, guys. Uploads are going to be crazy now. I'm going to be uploading a video every week. I'm still working on a massive review coming out, hopefully at the end of the month. And there's also going to be multiple live streams coming out, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys ever so much for the support and watching the videos and just overall being supportive of the channel. Leave a like, subscribe. I hope you guys enjoy the video and comment down below how survivable you think Fallout 4's Commonwealth is. Before we get into the meat of this video, the fine meat of this video, I'll take a moment now to describe to you how this video is actually going to work and any others that follow this, if this one does well, that is. So you know what you need to do. Smash that like button, guys. I need money.
Let's do this. You've been watching of this video so far has been completely AI generated. The Quellcube you're seeing on the screen right now is not really me.
What a shame. He was a good man.
The rules are simple to start off with. We're going off the fact that we are a normal person. That means we at least need to eat, drink, and we need adequate sleep. And if we get shot in the head, we can't just firm it like we can in Fallout 4. We actually die. For this video series, I've split Fallout 4's map into 9 different parts. You didn't split it! You stole it!
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Alright, fine. I didn't split the map. I got it off Google, but still. These parts are being decided based on their level difficulty. Each part will get its own dedicated video. Today we are going to start off how the player normally would, coming out of Vault 111. In this video, I will cover the first sector, the Sanctuary sector. I will go over different categories and then give each one a percentage rating, much like I do in my evaluating series of different factions, so that I can get a clear understanding of how survivable each sector and each factor of that said sector will be. At the end of the video, I will then be able to give a final percentage score on each sector of the map, starting off today, of course, with Sanctuary. And I'll give a survivability score of that said sector in this video, so stay tuned till the end to see that. I will also be covering how easy it would be for you to get to any other key locations across Fallout 4's Commonwealth map, and what areas Sanctuary in this case borders to really see how safe it is and see what other options of travel you have. In future videos, if any joinable factions come up, if any large cities come up, I will also be evaluating them as well and comparing that into your survivability of best chances. There should be timestamps all of this video anyway, so you can skip to what sections you're most interested in. It's important to note that I'm evaluating this as if you're still the normal guy who came out the vault, just this time you're not special whatsoever. The Minutemen are still stuck in Concord, the Brotherhood of Steel, in this case we'll say have only just landed, the Railroad aren't very well known about, and the Institute you have no chance of getting into. You're a normal person, completely normal. The only thing that changes is what location you enter or spawn in at the Commonwealth at, which will change from video to video. Without further ado, let's get into this. Sector 1 is normally the starting sector for Fallout 4's main game anyway. In this sector, you start as if you normally would, coming out of the vault. You start in Cryo Freeze, and from there you have to make your way through the vault and into the sector of Sanctuary, where this will be your main home, and you have the whole sector to explore. In this sector, there is one town that that being Concord. There is 3 settlements with people already in them, and 3 that can be made into settlements. However, there's no one living in those ones, or they have hostile enemies in them. This sector has 2 caravans that pass through it, and also, of course, does have 1 open trading shop, Adrenaline's Diner. There's also traders at Abernethy Farm, and this sector also borders with 3 others. Now that we have done a short overview of the sector, it's time to break it down and talk about it in more detail. The first thing I want to start off by talking about and evaluating is our options to settle down, as there are quite a few. To start with, you start in Vault 111 for your starting point in this area, and to be quite honest, I would say that this would be a really good place to stay. It has clean water, it's well protected, and not many people really know about it. Not to mention it probably has heating, and it definitely has electricity. The downsides to having this as your base is that the vault could malfunction and there would be literally nothing you could do to fix it, as you wouldn't have the intelligence skills, and I don't mean that in an insulting way, but to fix a vault. You would have to also leave the vault every once in a while to get food and supplies in, and you would probably end up getting very bored and extremely lonely, as no one else would be settling there with you unless you went out of your way to find someone. Not to mention, most of the vaults, such as the living quarters among other areas, are completely shut down, so you would not even be able to access half of the vault. Pair this with the fact there's a rad roach infestation and there's extremely dangerous electrical problems, it's more than likely you would end up getting killed or killing yourself on accident in the vault. The good thing about the vault as a starting location is there's a good amount of starting supplies, such as scientist outfits and even a pistol, which could be a lifesaver. There's also of course a stun baton, and there is also a freeze gun, but there's no way you'd be able to get that as it's completely locked up. There's also, incredibly importantly, both stim packs and Radex, literal lifesavers. This sort of equipment from the start, in many of the other starting locations, you're definitely not going to have access to this sort of equipment from the start. This could be a very key spot to stay in. Not to mention you're even out of the cold elements and have shelter. So I'm going to give this starting location a 60% effectiveness rating, as it has clean water, shelter, electricity, and it's very safe. However, it's lacking in food and company as well as fun things to do, and it has a lot of potential dangers. Okay, let's say you didn't want to stay in a vault, so you make your way out, and there you are, looking over Sanctuary and all of its might. But this time you want to find a place above ground to call home, so you set off. You have many options of settlements where there are already people in them, but then again, you have many options where there are potential for settlements that have no settlers in them yet. So let's start off with the settlements with people in them, and let's start off with Sanctuary. This settlement, as we know, is home to just one robot, that being Codsworth. Codsworth is not human company, but he is company nonetheless. He also would offer as a great protector, and Sanctuary not only has a hell of a lot of loot, but it also has building potential, and it's very large. However, that being said, that's kind of it. The negatives are Codsworth often ventures out into the Commonwealth, presumably to get supplies. There's no human company. Making a radio tower to get human company would be very hard with no help. However, Codsworth may be smart enough to instruct you on how to do it. There's no clean water source here, without water purification systems, which you would have to make. And you would have to find a way to either start a farm or find food. Not to mention Sanctuary has hostile bugs already in it when you leave the vault, so you'd have to deal with them. And talking about dealing with problems to do with enemies, Sanctuary on your own would be a nightmare to defend or even try to wall off with the amount of materials it would take. It's a large settlement with a lot of opportunity of good. However, on your own, it's just not a great starting point. There's a lot of beds, so you can at least get some shut-eye, and there is a lot of shelter and a little bit of heat coming off of this electricity that's for some reason here. But other than that, there's not much potential on your own. With hopes, Codsworth and you could make amends of the place, but it would take a long time, and that's if you could put up with a robot, or put up with a robot before someone invades your settlement and kills you. A large settlement with opportunity, however, could be a big task for just one person. I'm going to give it a 23% effectiveness. The next nearest settlement with people in it would be Ten Pines Buff. This settlement is home to 2 other settlers. It has a farm and 2 beds. However, no defenses and is currently under attack and being held ransom from a large raider gang in the nearby town. One good thing about this settlement, however, is that it often has a well-protected caravan that does come into the settlement itself quite often, which I presume would sell water considering there's no actual water pumps. You'd also have a way of working on the farm here and thus earning some caps too, so that means you would at least be making some money. And there is some room for building, however trying to build defenses or a radio tower would probably lead to the death of you and the other 2 settlers by the hands of the raiders. As even if you did have defenses and more people, this raider gang and group is huge, so it's not likely you would win in a battle. A small settlement with good people but lacking in structure and even clean water. 35% effectiveness. The last option for the settlement you could stay at that has people living in it would be Abernathy Farm. Oh, I pronounced that so well. This is a settlement that has a large base built around a pre-war power pylon. The settlement has 3 settlers, the Abernathy family members. It also does have a very large farm and clean water. There is of course shelter and enough beds for you to sleep in. Not to mention loads of room for expansion and building. You can also make caps here and profit by lending a hand with the farm family, by working of course the farm, who would most likely accept your hard work as they're low on people anyway. This settlement sounds literally perfect. Only problem is they are once again, just like the other settlement, under attack from a raider group. This time an even more powerful one than the ones holding up 10 Pines Bar. The other problem is the Abernathy family choose to fight back against these raiders, which has led to one of them, the Abernathy's father's daughter in fact, to be killed by the raiders. And this happened very recently. So it's more than likely if you're going to go with this family and a raider group shows up, they're going to try and fight, and there's no way they're going to win. Maybe you could get a radio tower, or maybe you could build some defenses before the raiders get to you again. The raiders are quite far away, so it would take them a couple days probably to get to your location, but overall, once again, this is still such a powerful raider group that I think you're very limited on what you'd be able to do, even if you had more people and turrets. This is literally a perfect settlement, but a fast way to die when and if those raiders come back. 40% effectiveness. The first settlement with no settlers in it is Red Rocket Truck Stealth. Now, this is a bit of a fib to be fair, because Red Rocket is home to one creature, and that of course is our beloved Dogmeat, the friendly dog. Having Dogmeat as a companion would be great. Unlike Codsworth, who would only take orders from and therefore also follow Nate or Nora, the main characters of Fallout 4 of course, as they were his masters, Dogmeat on the other hand would be much more likely to be loyal and be loving to whoever is the same to him. This means you would have a loyal pet who could defend you, search for food and supplies for you, and be at your side always. This in my book is a huge win to me. I mean, Dogmeat is a strong companion to have by your side. However, your wins for the most part do unfortunately stop there. Though Red Rocket does have a great amount of supplies and it does have shelter, don't get me wrong, it is also open for all kinds of attacks, has no working water pump, and also has no food on site, which means you would have to create both a working water pump and also find a way to source crops or find food. I really don't think this is an ideal settlement to stay at, especially in the early days. There's nothing really here for you other than Dogmeat. I mean, maybe it's a great place to just stop off at on the way to another settlement or on the way to another place and get Dogmeat. I would definitely suggest doing that, but staying here as a settlement is just not worth it, especially considering that you have Sanctuary just around the corner and you're open for an attack, and it's not likely that any settlers are going to move here unless you make it enticing. And that's the main thing. Making a settlement enticing on your own is going to be incredibly hard, and unlike Fallout 4 when you can whip it up in like 5 seconds, it's going to take you months and months and maybe even years to get basic things like crops going, water going, defenses built, and then to even build a radio tower to get people in. So it's just not a viable option in my book. So I'm going to give it a 25% effectiveness. The next location and therefore settlement we can look to move into would be Starlight Drive, a large parking lot which looked like it was used for cars to watch films on a large screen. Once again, proving my theory that Fallout 4 is actually linked to the Cars universe.
I am here today to answer a question that has been plaguing me for too long. Did 9/11 happen in the Cars universe?
What the fuck? Starlight Drive is huge. It has water, just no water pumps to provide actual clean water. It has room for crops, just no actual crops, so you'd have to make your own. And it does have shelter, and even one mattress, so that's good. I think, to put it quite blankly, the settlement's best trait is the loot, and beyond that, it's a terrible place to live. This settlement needs so much work done to it. Not to mention, you would have to build a radio tower to get anyone to move in, which would be near impossible on your own. You would have to build defenses, you would have to find a way to plant crops, find a way to make a water source, clean water source. It's a terrible idea to move here. The settlement is often also attacked by feral ghouls, and also often attacked by those weird fly things and insects, which both would most likely kill you very quickly, or very painfully at least. So I'm going to mark this settlement as a no-go zone. It has far too much danger for any reward worth going near. 5% effectiveness. Finally, the last settlement that has no people living in it is Sunshine Tidings Co-op. I really hope I've said that right. I don't think I have. And I'm just gonna say it. Once again, this is a no-go zone. This settlement is infested with feral ghouls that will rip you from head to toe. I mean, you are a normal person. There is no way you are beating feral ghouls, even with your little pistol you got from the vault. It's not happening. It's got no clean water. It does have a few crops and a lot of loot as well as shelter, but it's just not worth the risk. It's not worth the feral ghouls ripping you in 8 different pieces in 2 different seconds. Not to mention the radiation you would get trying to stealth your way around the feral ghouls to get the loot, or trying to kill the feral ghouls in any way. Once again, is not worth it, because you're gonna have to then treat radiation poisoning, and if you don't have Rad-X, which to be fair you do, or Radaway rather, which you do have from the vault, so maybe you would be okay, but in most cases you're just gonna die a horrific death of radiation poisoning. There is no reason to go here. Radio tower getting set up here is not possible because you'd have to clear the ghouls out. No one's gonna come with you to go here because they'd be terrified of getting killed by ghouls. The settlement itself is open for so many different attacks, it's ridiculous, and building turrets once again would be such a long task on your own. So I'm gonna mark this as a no-go zone and give it a 1% effectiveness. Now I want to talk about all the points of interest in Sanctuary's sector and see where you may want to go to get supplies, or may want to go in general in the sector. Now, to start off with, though the Sanctuary sector itself is quite a safe sector, that does not mean it's not got a lot of places of interest to visit. There are no towns with active settlements of people in them. There is only one shop, that being Trudy's Drumroom Diner. Now, only problem with this shop is it's being actively held up by a group of thugs. Now, this is a huge shame because it's actually the only shop for literal miles on end, and also the only shop in this sector. So it would be a great place to sell goods, buy supplies such as meds and other really important things. Now, there is a part of me that thinks it's very much worth trying to talk to the thugs and Trudy and pass the speech check to get these thugs to back off, as it's really not a high speech check at all. So I feel like your average normal person who's not an introvert and doesn't have social anxiety.
Get it, bro. What's up? What's up? Take that shit off. Take that shit off. Laugh like you're not a bitch. Take that shit off.
Should be able to pass this speech check in real life as well. They're not hard thugs to back down or get to back down. I feel like it's worth trying, so I kind of want to say have a go at getting them to not attack and kill Trudy. Only problem with this is that if you fail this speech check, you're more than likely going to end up with a bullet in your head. The other thing you could do, of course, is side with either Trudy or the thugs. If you side with Trudy, I feel like you're going to die because you're outnumbered. But if you side with the thugs, I think you would actually live, and you would reap the reward of being able to rob Trudy's shit, but then you would be an immoral asshole, and let's be real, I would like to hope that most of us wouldn't do that in a real life scenario. So it's up to you if you want to take that risk or not of talking to these thugs and trying to persuade them to back off. As for your other options of interest and points of interest, the only one I can think of would be Concord, but that's a no-go zone in my book. Unless you have a good ability to sneak around the raider group attacking Preston, then I don't think it's worth going there. I mean, there's some good loot, don't get me wrong, but the raiders would tear you apart, as there's no way you're going to save Preston and his gang, so I don't think it's worth to go to this location at all, and I would recommend just avoiding it. Not to mention the fucking Deathclaw that's looming there, so yeah, I don't want to deal with that, and nor would you, I can imagine. So when I said the sector of Sanctuary may have great locations, yeah, it in fact appears it does not have any great locations. It has one shop, a town filled with raiders, and other than that, it's basically just made up of settlements with people in or settlements without people in. All these side buildings are infested with bugs or ghouls. However, there are a few that aren't, in which I would recommend looting them. As for the main point of interest in Sanctuary, I would actually say it's the vault, the very place you started in. But in that case, it's not really a point of interest because you started there. Here is the final evaluation for points of interest in the Sanctuary sector of Fallout 4. When it comes to joinable factions in this location, you really don't have any options, to be honest. There of course is the Minutemen, however you have incredibly low chances of successfully saving Preston and his crew, and then winning the battle against the Deathclaw. Well, your odds there are pretty much zero. As for the Brotherhood of Steel, you would have to make a very long journey to the airship to get to them, to even speak to them, or somehow find your way to Cambridge, in which you'd probably die at the hands of Paladin Dance's ghoul problem. Walking your way to the airship would also probably take weeks that you don't have, considering you would need food and water for those weeks, so it would take you a long time to get enough stuff to make that journey. As for the railroad, well, you're a normal person, so you have no idea who the railroad are or where they are. Even if you did somehow make it to a settlement like Diamond City and discovered of their existence, you'd then have to walk the Freedom Trail. Good luck. In fact, coming from a vault, you would have no idea who the Brotherhood of Steel are. I mean, they'd be a lot easier to find out who they are, as I'm very sure settlers would have a basic idea of who the BOS are. However, like I said before, you'd still have to make that journey, which would take you an incredible amount of time. That's the other problem with the Vault Starter Pack or Vault Starter section, is you really don't have the knowledge like you would in other sections. If we're assuming you're coming out of a vault, then you have to learn everything from coming out of a vault. But I suppose, with that being said, you would probably have to learn most things from Settlers, Codsworth, or, well, Dogmeat doesn't speak, so you can't really learn anything from him. But you would have to learn what these different creatures are that inhabit the wasteland, and also about other factions, which you wouldn't have to do for any of the other starting sectors. Just this one because you start as a vault dweller. And also, of course, you would have absolutely no idea of the Institute's existence, or, of course, any idea how to join them. So, you pretty much have no factions you could join in the Sanctuary sector. The only actual groups you could join is a Settler group or a Raider group, but I don't actually think there's any Raider groups within Sanctuary itself. I mean, maybe you could join the group of thugs holding up Trudy's Diner, but I highly doubt that as well, as they're only there on business because they think that Trudy's son screwed them. So there really isn't any faction options for this sector. You'd have to go a long way out to find any factions to join, and by that point it's probably not worth it. Without further ado, this is the final ranking for factions in the Sanctuary sector. Okay, what if you decide you want to leave this sector and make a better life for yourself in another sector? Well, coming from Sanctuary, I won't lie, this is going to be a very hard task to pull off. The Sanctuary section borders 3 other sections: the Fort Hagen section, the Cambridge section, and the Madeline section. Now, out of all of these sections, by far yours is the safest. The Sanctuary section, that is, in terms of what enemies are actually in them, as the Sanctuary section only really has ghouls to deal with, and also other animals. I mean, the worst enemy in the Sanctuary section is probably a mutant bear, and that's not even that bad as long as you know where to not go. In fact, Sanctuary's main threat are all from the sections around Sanctuary. None of the Raider groups are actually located in the Sanctuary section itself, which is kind of strange, that they attack settlements from outside of Sanctuary and then go in to attack but live outside, but it also kind of makes sense from a tactical point of view. Your biggest threat from an actual Raider group is the ones holding up the Minutemen. However, they don't even live in Sanctuary themselves either, so you're pretty safe from them. The only massive threat in Sanctuary is of course the Deathclaw from Concord, which will be waking up and will wreak havoc everywhere. I would advise staying well away from Concord in general. If I was going to move to a neighboring sector, I would move to Sector 2. As though it is more dangerous, it has a lot more options for settlements to move to. This would be a great settlement if you want to improve your income and get better economy in Fallout 4's Commonwealth. However, if you wanted to try and move or get to a major city, such as Diamond City, Good Neighbor, Bunker Hill, then there's definitely a different route to take. The safest route, for example, to get to Diamond City, which is kind of the place everyone will want to get to because it's the safe haven of Fallout 4's world, then you're going to want to go through the Fort Hagen section. This is because this section is very open, and though it does have a lot of dangerous parts, it's very open, so you can dodge quite easily in between enemies and avoid them with most ease. It also only has one main main bridge to cross to get into central Boston. So that means you have to cross the least amount of deadly bridges, which are held up by raiders, mines that are planted on them, or are genuinely a open spot to get killed. The open land might sound like it's a massive problem to move through, but trust me, it's really not. I'd much rather move through the open land to get to Diamond City and then only have to move through a tiny part of the city than go straight through the heart of the Commonwealth to get there, or even worse, Greater Cambridge. As for once you cross the bridge, you only have a mild part of the city to get through, in which you're basically best off just sprinting your way through to get to Diamond City. The one sector I would say to avoid the most would definitely be the Cambridge sector. Cambridge is a death trap, and I can't wait to come to talking about it in another video, because it is probably the most unappealing sector on the entire map outside of the glowing sea itself. It is just a walking haven for ghouls, raiders, and other horrible mutants and traps. So the sectors that are bordering Sanctuary in terms of dangers aren't that bad. There's no animals that come into your sector from other sectors. Your biggest dangers are the raider groups that are coming from other sectors, which are from probably the Madeline sector the most, as that's where the raider group that's attacking Abernathy Farm comes from. And as for the raider group attacking Tempine's Buff, that one actually comes from a huge raider group inside the walls of Cambridge. So those sectors are prompt for raider attacks. So you probably want to stay away from the border of those sectors. However, I would say that is the sector you would like to move into the most if you want a better economy, because there is a lot higher chance of getting a better settlement there. So the choice of yours. In my opinion, I would definitely stay at Sanctuary. It's not worth the massive long walk all the way to Diamond City unless you have a stacked out group of settlers with you, all armed, all trained, all have water, all have food. And it could be argued that it is worth moving sector to the Madeline sector for a better life in terms of caps and more people and more opportunity. However, that also comes with its risks of there being a greater populace of raiders in that said sector. So the choice has got to be up to you, but I personally think I would stay in the Sanctuary sector. Now, before I give my final thoughts on what you should do to survive in this sector of the Commonwealth, I want to get an overall percentage of how clean the water is in this area, how much food there is, and how much shelter there is, as well as how bad the radiation is. So let's start off with the water. Having safe water to consume is very, very important. Luckily for yourself, there is a lot of purified water that can be found all around the Sanctuary section of the Commonwealth. There are also 2 caravans that can sometimes sell clean water, and there is at least 1 settlement with a working water pump. Other than that, you're going to be on your own to find drinkable water. The radiation levels in Sanctuary sector are, luckily for you, very low, so if you have to drink from a pond or source of water, while it isn't ideal in any case, it isn't going to kill you from radiation poisoning, at least not for a very long time, as the radiation is very low in this area. That being said, in the whole of this sector, there is only 1 working water pump in 1 settlement. The other one completely relies on caravans, and other than that, you're going to have to either try and find purified water, which there is a lot of in Sanctuary, or you're going to have to rely on drinking from lakes. So overall, I'll give this section, I'll be generous, and I'll give this section a 40% availability for water. Now, as for food in Sanctuary sector, there actually is quite a lot more food options in Sanctuary sector than there is water options. 2 out of 3 settlements with people in them already have fully working farms set up. Not to mention, you can find food all over the area with very little ease. You can also, of course, go hunting for deers and other animals, which, while may not be your best option, is always one on the table, and is one that is very valid due to you being surrounded by nature. As Sanctuary is such a far sector from any proper towns or any of the central Boston area, there is a lot of wildlife that is able to be hunted and then eaten. So I'm going to give Sanctuary's food quality a 70% effectiveness. Now I'll look at shelter and radiation. Sanctuary, though not being a town or the main Boston City section, is, however, covered in not only shelter, but shelters with worth and even beds inside for you to sleep in, including even, of course, the vault. The shelter you do get outside the vault can be a bit primitive, but it is by no means the worst kind to get. So I'll give the shelter an 80% effectiveness for this section, as there is lots of it you can find, and there's even your very own vault if you want to stay there, which is arguably the best shelter you can find in the wasteland. Finally, I'll talk about the overall radiation of Sanctuary. The sector of Sanctuary is the furthest you can possibly be from the main bombing of Boston. Quick side note, I don't really understand why they didn't just drop like a load of nukes in the middle of Boston so you completely flatten it. Like, the glowing sea is clearly where they hit the most, and that is not central Boston, so That is kind of strange, but still. This means overall radiation levels are extremely low, and there are little radiation hazards such as toxic spills or other things. Instead, the biggest problem you will have with radiation hazards is actually from the ghouls themselves attacking you. But in that case, it's quite easy to avoid. Just stay away from ghouls. The only issue I will say Sanctuary faces quite a lot is radiation storms, which do happen a good amount in this sector. However, there is enough shelter to get to that you should be okay. So I'll give radiation safety for this sector an 80% safety effectiveness score. So now it's time I take you through what I think you should do if you wake up from the vault in the Sanctuary sector of Fallout 4's Commonwealth. If I was waking up from the vault, the first thing I would do is gather as much supplies as I possibly could. Once this was done, I would head above ground. From there, I would meet with Codsworth and gather supplies around Sanctuary so that I could get more food and water, and potentially more purified water. From Sanctuary, I would head over to Dogmeat at Red Rocket and take him on as a companion, and also gather some resources there. Once this would be done, I would only go 2 different places, that being 10 Pines Buff to get supplies and food from the local traders and the farmers, and then go back to the vault. If I was desperately nearly out of water, I would go to Abernathy Farm, as I know there's a working water pump there, but then I would go straight back to the vault with my water. From here, it's simple. You only leave the vault to gather supplies from the ruins of Sanctuary and travel to Tempest Buff to get food and buy supplies. You can earn a living from scrapping parts of Sanctuary and selling them off to the trader at Tempest Buff, or at working at Tempest Buff Farm, as I'm sure they would be more than happy to have a helping hand. You could build defenses inside and outside the vault to make it feel more safe, and also extend it and add on to the vault to make it feel more homely. If you wanted to live outside the vault for whatever insane reason, I would go to Abernathy Farm. That's where I would recommend, as you get a little bit more of a life there and a better social life. For whatever reason, if you would want to leave this sector, I would only ever do it to go to a place like Diamond City or a major settlement. And if that was the case, you would want to make sure you head through the Fort Hagen sector to get to Boston. That is what I would do if I woke up in the Sanctuary sector. With all that being said, here are the final statistics for the Sanctuary sector of this video. Thank you guys ever so much for watching this video. I hope you did like the video, and if you did, please do consider liking and subscribing to the channel with the bell notification on. I would very much appreciate that indeed. Other than that, guys, I'll be keeping you posted on the videos coming up soon. I'm sorry this one took a while to get out. I've been very busy, not very concentrated at the minute, which is very bad. I apologize for that. But hopefully I can get back on it now, and we can have a good month of quality videos. There'll be streams coming in soon, so I'll keep you all updated. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Stay safe, guys, and peace.